Why don't we kick it to the Brad Wall interview right now? And
Yes.
and just to tee it up a bit for people here is the reason why I think this is such an important episode is because we're not just asking him about the issues of the day here. We're actually asking him why he was such a good leader and how he maintained his integrity throughout his entire political career. And and just so you know how rare this person is, this leader, is he was the most popular premier in Canada for a decade. He completely changed the trajectory of a province, and he was very well liked by both sides, honestly. Like there's people,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly didn't like him, but he was fairly well liked across the country. People thought he should be prime minister, and
Yeah.
he actually went out on a high. Like how rare is that, that you see
Yeah.
someone go out, give up power, and do a great transition of power that has led to subsequent majority governments by Scott Moe as premier.
Yeah.
And he did it in the most honorable way possible. And so what I was trying to get at in this interview, and you're helping me, Greg, is like, how did you do that, man? Like, how did you win in public life without losing yourself? And I think it's so valuable to hear about his upbringing and his values and his principles that really helped him get there. And I think leaders need to really watch this interview, glean from him how he's able to do this, and it will really make them far better leaders that have longevity and legacy, which Bradwell has. And he's just a terrific man. He's one of
Absolutely.
the best. And I've worked with a lot of politicians, and a lot of them have been great, but they've none of them have been the quality of character and individual. That's Brad.
Yes.
And so yeah, it was a fun interview with him. You have to sort of maybe skip past the parts of him making fun of us if you want to get to the juice
Yeah.
quicker.
Yeah. Don't
But
watch
yeah,
that. Yeah. Don't watch
yeah,
that.
you can watch it if you like a former permer making fun of some staffers, some recovering staffers. So it's good. But yeah, let's kick it to the great Brad Wall, who we're just honored to have on.
Right there.
I do.
Perfect.
Well, our first inaugural guest here is the great former Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall, 14th Premier of Saskatchewan. Mr. Wall, good to see you again. Thanks for
Easy,
doing this.
easy on the mister. Mister's at home in Swiftcurrent.
Okay, all right, very good then.
Yeah.
So we want to talk a lot about how to win in public life without losing yourself today. So those will be some interesting questions. Hopefully, questions you've never really been asked before is sort of the plan here, and get to some of the personal side of it. And the first question that is very important: your post-political life. You've been helping a lot of businesses across Western Canada and beyond expand, grow, working with a lot of different leaders. But what I really want to talk about is your ranching endeavors. Would you maybe share a little bit about what you're doing on the ranch?
No, not not before not before I do this.
Okay.
Derek, and for those folks tuning into this inaugural episode of the podcast, Derek and I are from the same hometown. Our
Yes.
families knew each other, and Derek was a senior member of my staff in my old job, and we had the best social media team in the country, led by you, Derek. So now that's the last nice things we need to really say about each other. I think we're good. But yeah,
Gloves off.
it's good to see you again, and congratulations on all your success in building your business at MASH there. I'm not going to answer any questions until you answer a question, Derek. And that question is: have you yet seen Tombstone, the movie?
So I have, yes, I've seen
Yeah.
Tombstone, but you keep saying that I haven't, and
No,
so
but you admitted to. Well, it didn't count because you finally did watch it.
yeah.
After all the browbeating from both Paul and I. But then I think you said you fell asleep in the movie.
For part of it, I was very tired when I watched it, but I woke up. In these old westerns are a little slow in parts, but they're also very good in other parts too. So I like when what was the guy that was really sick and
Have you then? Well, the fact that you have to ask who is really sick. This is Val Kilmer playing Doc Holliday, doing an
right.
outstanding. Should have been Best Supporting Actor. I think anyone would agree. It's objectively true, but at that time anyway, and still now, I think the Academy Awards or whatever they are,
Yeah.
they don't like westerns. So I think Unforgiven by Clint Eastwood years ago shocked everybody when it won Best Picture, and that was like early 2000s or something like that. It was also a great movie that you probably haven't seen, but I'm glad you kind of watched some of it because it is just outstanding. And even to this day, 2025, people use lines from the movie all the time. I'm your Huckleberry, or I mean, there's so many of them. They're mostly the Doc Holliday lines from Val Kilmer. But so, you know, if you're going to be sort of relatable, Derek, in your business, I think you should be. You should know when someone says, I'm your Huckleberry, that you should know where it comes from, and maybe be able to counter with, look like somebody walked over your grave, or some other line from the movie, and happily surprise them, and then sign a big big deal with your firm because they're impressed with your knowledge of Tombstone. Anyway, you should watch it again and stay awake, and then we can be friends again, which is another line from the movie, actually.
Well, okay, so I have to do better than just passively watch it. I need to watch it 5, 10, 20 times, like you yourself have done. Something like that, right?
Something like that. I think it's probably more than 5 or 10 times. I mean, yeah, be off to a good start.
So that's your great advice, people, is watch Tombstone. That's
watch it. Truly, it's if it's not the best Western ever, it's not the best Western. The best Western, I think, is not even a movie. The best Western is a TV miniseries from the 90s called Lonesome Dove. So that's another take home for you guys today, if you haven't seen it. That stars Robert Duvall and Tom Jones and Danny Glover and a bunch of guys, and it's kind of loosely based on the true story of the cattle drives from Texas to Montana to settle in Montana. It's this epic show with wonderful lines and great acting, and the videography is obviously outstanding. So you should, if you haven't seen that movie, Lonesome Dove, or that series, you should remedy that too. There's a couple of guys that are the two stars in the show. Robert Duvall's character and Tommy Lee Jones are loosely based on actual characters that did that very thing, and one of them was Oliver Loving, and the other one is Charles Goodnight. And in fact, the Chuck wagon was kind of innovated and named for Charles Goodnight. There you go. There's some really important non-political information for everybody to have. And there's a certain guy from the Cypress Hills area who's a singer-songwriter who wrote a song called The Last Loving Words. And it's sort of based on some of what happens in that TV series that was true in life too. So there you go.
So do you know this country music star at all? Have you
just barely?
Barely. Okay. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Brad is actually more famous because of his son Coulter Wall than he is for his exploits in politics, which are many. But Coulter's kind of a big deal nowadays, and
he's doing very well. Yeah. And you know what? To segue then to your first question that I dodged.
Yes, you're good at that.
Classic politician.
Yeah, classic, typical politician. He does he's the operator for a yearling operation that I'm sort of a silent partner. I think he's kind of jokes around when I say that, that I'm a silent partner. It's noting that I'm especially silent when like there's fencing to do or something that isn't
real work. You don't do the real work.
Thing that isn't like horseback or something that I gather. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm partners in, he's the operator and the majority guy, but in that yearling operation, there. And but I volunteer, and I'm so thrilled when some of the new really good friends and neighbors that we've met will call and say, "Hey, we got to go gather," or I'm going to I want to ride through my pairs, and do you want to come along? And I mean, I just absolutely love it. I'm kind of I'm a wannabe cowboy dreamer for a long time. Right. So the fact that I got to do my dream job and still enjoy my post-political career, doing some consulting and business development and advisory work, but also this other stuff I'm just so blessed. I'm very grateful. I'm just absolutely loving it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. And
nice.
You have a horse.
Awesome.
And I'm I don't think there's not like scout badges that you earn, of course. But, if there were one for getting run over by a really, really angry cow in the pens during a branding of some replacements, that badge that just happened just before Christmas, and I was pretty scared. I got actually chased up the fence twice. These were really, really seemed waspy, as they say, or angry replacement cows that were bought at Heartland in Swift Current, which you know well.
Yep.
Brought to a very good friend's ranch, and so he invited me over They had to brand these.
Yeah.
And we were trying to get him from the pens and down the alley and into the chute. And yeah, I got chased up the fence twice. And then the third time I was backpedaling, like trying to be like a Saskatchewan Rough Rider defensive back and backpedal as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And in my efforts to move faster, I fell. I tripped, sort of fell on my butt, and the cow came right at me like full speed. And
Wow.
I held up this elbow, and it was kind of sore for a while, but it could have been a lot worse. I'm convinced, I didn't know because my eyes are closed. I'm convinced that she kind of slowed down her momentum, or it would have been more than a slow elbow. So this buddy of mine who keeps telling me that, I really haven't done anything until I've been bucked off a horse. He came up afterwards and said, you know what? That counts. So you may not have
nice.
Yeah. So and he's a KG veteran,
Wow.
cowboy and a rancher. So I'm going to take that and say, now I do not have to get bucked off a horse to be able to claim something. I'm not sure what yet.
Well, I think, I'm no cowboy, as you know. I'm a small city boy from Saskatchewan, but I didn't make it out of the country enough. But like I would say, hey, you're a partner in a ranch with your son who does a lot of the ranching, plus you own a horse, and now you've gotten trampled, or close to trampled and died, doing some of the work. So like you got to be close to being a real cowboy at this point.
I think I got a long way to go. Got a long way to go. And we call it the ranching too, Derek, but because Coulter has this other career he needs to attend to, we run a yearling operation. And so for folks that don't know, most of the ranches that you think of were cow calf. And so I'm thinking about them right now and winter, because they got to feed their cows all winter long. And that's a lot of work. It's just a different thing. When you run a yearling operation exclusively, or a grasser operation, you buy them in early spring, and you feed them, you grass them basically on your land and take care of them. And hopefully they put on a lot of weight and survive healthily until you sell, in our case, some early in the fall. So, Coulter does most of the work, but I do try to show up for fun stuff.
That's great. Do you ever get attached to them? Like, you have to, get rid of them pretty quickly. It's like, hey, I'd like to keep them for longer, or,
No,
you're done with them. No.
I kind of asked Coulter that once when we were watching a cattle liner take a load of those yearlings up away up the hill, and he just said no, because it's kind of, you want to make sure they all survive and they're all healthy. Right. There's not a huge amount of stress in that maybe, but it's a concern, it's a worry. And when and you did okay, then I think there's some relief to say, see ya. In our case, a couple of years, Coulter's gone with heifers, not steers. And so it's sort of, see ya, girls. We'll see what happens next spring.
Right. Hey, well, that's good.
And getting run over probably helps, I'm so relieved to now be free of this.
I want to tell you, Gregory, that hamburger and steak have never felt or tasted so good as when you've been almost maimed by one. That's why we eat.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are they Black Angus, or what are they?
Yeah, they're a mix sometimes. And Coulter puts the packages together, mostly Black Angus. Yeah. And we had a few herd markers this year and last, like a few red ones snuck in there and a white one. So probably some Charlet in there somewhere, but we try to put together packages with the buyer, and it's a little bit of whatever you can get. But you've given me this soapbox. Let me climb up on it just for
please do.
Moment. Take it away.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've been doing is volunteering on the Canadian Cattlemen Association sort of advocacy committee. I don't think that's the official title of the committee, but it's basically volunteers who are providing some input and some advice to the CCA on how to be a bit more proactive, like I've been asking the oil and gas companies to do when I left politics and during it, in terms of dealing with some of the environmental objections, some of the NGOs that say things that are untrue or sometimes half true about that industry and about the beef industry, especially the climate change crowd. And what's lost, what's never talked about, and through the CCA, there's been a documentary produced. I recommend it to all of those that listen to this podcast, and you guys and anyone you know. It's called Guardians of the Grasslands. I think it's only about 25 minutes. You've seen it.
It's quite good.
Thank you for that. And so it just makes the case that One of the ecosystems in the world that's really endangered is the North American grasslands. It's every bit as endangered as an oceanic ecosystem or the rainforest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the endangerment risks everything that any ecosystem that's in danger risks. Habitat, flora and animals, plants, obviously, and it's a great sequester. The grasslands are a great sequester of CO2. So if CO2 is your thing, if climate change is your thing, 60,000 acres is 2 million tons worth of CO2, I think. And if we see more and more of this marginal land or grassland broken up, of course, that is a release of CO2, a significant release of CO2, again, if that's your thing. And it's less and less so for me, I think. But we can maybe get into that a little bit later or not. I'm fine if not. But those for NGOs and others that are worried about it and worried about climate change, there needs to be some awareness. So I think I tweeted something like, if you use a plastic or a paper straw to save, to save an ecosystem, then have a hamburger and save the one right in your in your backyard, because the guardian is the cattleman, is the rancher, that is the steward of the grassland, preserving it. And 120, 30 years ago, there's 30 million bison that were the keystone species that supported, were the reason that habitat, that ecosystem could thrive and survive. Well, they're mostly gone. And so now the guardian, the steward, the keystone species to preserve those grasslands are cattle, is beef. So
that's really good.
Have a burger.
What I agree, and what I like about it is that you're not buying into the narrative of certain environmental groups. You're creating a new version of the narrative. You're not buying into what they're selling. You're saying, no, this is the reality here, and it's a different spin on, rather than just responding, oh no, it's actually good. It's like, no, it's like, this is the reality. These are the facts here, and it tells a great story. So
using their case, you're right, which we should be doing that more in advocacy on any number of issues, and we should be doing it as well in politics to a greater extent, because if you just say no to everything or want to argue with everything, you eventually lose. I think you lose a bit of credibility, and you lose, I think, just of people that otherwise perhaps support your position, because you're saying, all right, well, I know this is your issue. Your issue is climate change. Here is the case for the industry that I'm passionate about, framed in terms of climate change, in terms of the thing that you care about, rather than just saying no or name call, or getting into an argument and name calling, trying to denigrate their position.
Telling your own story.
Yeah, telling
that's the key.
And I know you guys help your clients do that, so
we certainly do. No.
Well, I can imagine your next merch opportunity: save the planet, eat a burger. So I want like 10%. Well, I'm in on the ground floor. I only want 10%.
All right. Oh yeah, checks.
Yeah, Greg does a lot of merch. He can do that for you. But I want to pivot to your political history, Brad, because I always have had a great respect for you, and many have, for being very grounded as a leader. And there could have been a lot of times where you got prideful. You've had these massive majority government wins, the province experienced a decade of growth under your leadership. You're the most popular premier in Canada for a decade. If there's any leader that could have got prideful and tried to hang on to power much longer than otherwise he should have, it certainly could have been you. But you always seem to stay grounded, and you always seem to be just Brad to people throughout the province and throughout the country. And when people ask me, how was Brad behind the scenes? Was he the same guy in public, which is very well regarded, as he was behind the scenes? And my answer is always the same. It's that he was better. And I think that's very rare in politics and in leadership in general. So the question I want to ask, and just tell some of your stories of, how did you stay grounded through all those years in politics, when there's so many different things flying at you, and you have all the pressures and stresses and successes, and people saying how great you are. And for a time, everyone wanted you to be prime minister. There's still a lot of people that want you to be prime minister at some point. So how did you deal with all that? How did you stay grounded? What were some of the systems and habits that you used to do that?
It was my raising, I think, and the faith that came along with my raising. Had I ever had an inclination, and I really didn't, had I ever had an inclination to start sort of believing our own hype, or other people's hype, I think I would have got a visit from my folks, and my wife's a good force for good in terms of keeping our whole household grounded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up learning that pride goeth before a fall, and I believe it. I really do believe it. I used to say, and I'm sure I said it to you, Derek, that let's not take ourselves too seriously.
Right.
Let's leave others to do that. Right. What I meant by that was, if we keep our head down and do the work and admit mistakes when they happen, and with a little bit of luck and some providence have some success, we don't need to take the credit. People will give up. People will give you the credit, and that would be my message here. It's so true, and you would know this, Derek. You're on the front lines of communicating some of these successes. Most of them were economic, because we were a growth party. We wanted population growth. We wanted investment to increase investment to the province. We wanted better job numbers. We wanted wholesale statistics to be improving every month as a province. We would make sure to trumpet. You did a great job, but our team, both social and conventional media, we did a great job of heralding, of trumpeting every single one of those positive moments that happened over 10 years. But we never said, hey, look what the Sask Party government has done. Hey, look what we've done. Look what I've done. We just said, we said things like, and it was, I'm sure it got, maybe it got repetitive for folks. We just said, congratulations, Saskatchewan. Congratulations on the economy. You're growing because of your good work, because of your entrepreneurial spirit. Here's the new job numbers. We'd say, congratulations, Saskatchewan. Here's the new population numbers. Welcome these newcomers to our province. And guess what? The credit came back to us, whether it was deserved or not. Yeah, and I don't see that a lot. I also have always strongly believed in ectomies when it comes to speeches and comms. So take out the I's from your speech and your communications and your press releases. I did this. I will, or even when I will do this. We talked about we were a team, first of all.
For sure.
Where it's not just the premier, it's not just the leader of the party. It's a caucus. It's a team behind the caucus. It's we. And so use that word. I just think the more often you can do that and just avoid saying I think it's better received, and it helps remind you. It keeps you humble, right? If you're remembering, all right, there's the whole team back here. Plus, there's good luck, the commodity pricing. Plus, there's the blessings of Providence, all the resources we have in the province. This is not a singular effort by any means, and I think all of that helps. So it's probably how I was raised, and then again, Tammy keeping me grounded. And honestly, I'm grateful to my folks for that, and because I'm just sort of, to do anything else felt weird. It just didn't seem right or consistent or frankly true. So I know, Derek, you've heard me say this so many times, but I would ask, I think early on after I became leader of the opposition in 2004, the Ides of March 2004, by the way, not the most auspicious date to be chosen.
That's right. Yeah.
It was March 15th, 2004. And I would ask that my team would ask whoever was introducing me at a function, Chamber of Commerce or a political event, whatever it was, to not introduce me and then end with, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the next Premier of Saskatchewan. Because I wasn't that. I was aspiring to be that. We were aspiring to win the next election, but we hadn't won anything yet. And so I think it was really important it just sets a bit of a mindset. So I just said, introduce me as the leader of the Saskatchewan Party or the leader of Her Majesty's official opposition.
Yeah. And I remember you always saying, and making sure our tweets said this, anything, if we have the honor to serve, we will do this.
Right. That's it. When I'm premier, I'm going to do. No, to me, that sounds presumptuous. If we have the honor to serve, if we have the chance to form the government, here are the things we're going to try to do. Yeah. And I think it's really important to keep the promises you made. That may seem fairly foundational, but most people think of politicians as not doing that, of all stripes.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be in the business of surprising people on two levels, right, Derek? I used to say, let's surprise people by keeping the promises we made,
Yep.
and two, let's find where some people would stereotype the Saskatchewan Party as a conservative party, not interested in some social issues. That's not true. We know it's not true, but let's maybe find some of these social issues that need to be fixing, and fix it as best we can, and surprise people. Say, well, that kind of came out of left field for me, that the Saskatchewan Party would be the one that would be championing support for and housing for people with intellectual disabilities, as you know we did, Derek.
Yep.
So there's when you're truly humble, and you're going to, and you've got your head down, and you're trying to do the job and keep your commitments you've made, you will find these opportunities as a new government or as a political party to surprise people in a good way. What we did with the folks, what we did in terms of supports for people with intellectual disabilities wasn't counter to the founding principles of the Saskatchewan Party. It wasn't left wing or right wing or middle. It's just the right thing to do.
The right thing to do.
The most vulnerable people in our society, and so many of them were on a wait list for even the dignity of a home. So why wouldn't we, if we had some resources, and we did, budgets in those years were good, were flush. They weren't so much for the last 5 years, but they were to start. So why don't we invest some of that in folks who are the most vulnerable among us?
Yeah, no, that's great. And like the one thing that we always talked about a lot, and the media talked about a lot about, is that you'd go home to Swift Current every weekend or wherever you could. And I remember you saying in some speeches in different places where, I got a lot of my advice at Safeway. When you're in Swift Current and Safeway and people stopping the aisle. So just maybe talk about going back home to Swift Current and talking to people there and how that grounded you. And obviously you're there with your folks and Tammy and the family, and that helped too, I'm sure.
Well, originally it was a family-related decision, and it became to have benefits on the job, I think. Tammy and I talked about it. Our kids were well settled in school, quite young when I became opposition leader, but settled in, and it's a 2-hour drive, double lane highway. But there was an assumption that we'd move to Regina, I think, by some, and we just decided not to. We met Regina. We lived there for a while. Nothing against Regina, but Swift Current's my hometown, and it turned out to be a real benefit, as you've alluded to here, Derek, because I did get my best advice at Safeway and Swift Current, or at church, or because there you're without any of the trappings of the office. When I was in Swift Current, I was just Brad. I mean, I happened to have that other job, and so I think people I think they felt comfortable coming up and saying, "Man, Highway 363 sucks." And you guys,
that was a terrible highway.
You said you were going to. I think actually this still kind of sucks, or sucks again. I'm not sure, but my point is that people would feel free to approach, and I had then I had ready access to grounding that we just talked about in the earlier segment, right? From my wife and from my family and my kids. I remember I came home one day and I was sort of in, I don't know, maybe a little grumpy, walked in the door and took off my coat and walked around the kitchen, and Tammy, I think, was making like chili or something. And I looked at the chili and I said, "Oh, I don't want any kidney. You put kidney beans in my chili." And I was just being picky about stuff. And then I was on the kids about their homework, and I just walked in the door, and Megan, our oldest, said, "Dad, when you're here, you're not the premier." So, so you get moments like that. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They will humble you. Kids will humble you.
This chili is awesome. I wish there were more kidney beans in it. You can have a approach. To this day, I don't think chili is a place for kidney beans, fellas, but I've learned to be just appreciative someone else is making it.
It's a strong policy position you have there. That's
I do. It's very strong.
Yeah. Greg, you got a question here.
Yeah, fire away, Greg.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'll tell you, not to inflate any egos any further, but
don't worry
to tell you how like impressive the career was. Like, we in Ontario, I remember, and I won't tell you what tier of education it was so that no one feels too old, but I remember being in school and thinking, "Hey, that Brad Wall guy from Saskatchewan, he's doing a good job, eh?" So people in the center of the universe. So if we're talking about Saskatchewan, that's pretty important. So, but we're talking a little bit about that life outside of politics, and I think it's obviously very important to do that. What did yours? And I mean, in terms of how did you disconnect? How did you unwind? Was it chess, Xbox, roller coasters? Like, what did you do to unwind and relax and have that life outside of politics?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for making me feel old. When we were learning
It
about
could have been university. Who knows?
we were learning about you in grade 3, Brad. Here's what they. But that's cool. Thanks, Greg. I did a bunch of stuff. I golfed a little bit. I golfed a lot more before politics. It just takes up so much time, but I golfed a little bit.
Mhm.
I probably watched too much TV. You know, you go downstairs, sit just plunk down in front of the TV and watch either news networks or whatever. And
Riders,
and
Raiders.
we had the the Oakland and now Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't really help the stress level at all.
That made it worse. Yeah.
They're so
Yeah.
so terrible. Still are epically terrible. But I know what Derek goes through cheering for the Leafs. It's just a disappointment after disappointment.
It is.
You got to
It
pick a
is.
good team.
Yeah.
Start picking a good team here.
I'm gonna stick. Anyway, so you know what? For a while, I was playing. You mentioned video games, and I think, well, I don't think I played any video games, but Coulter got Red Dead Redemption. You know, that was a Western
Oh yeah.
video game.
Great game. Oh yeah, I'm playing it right now. Actually, the Red Dead Redemption 2. It's
Like
fantastic.
right now during the podcast.
Yeah, I got bored during the podcast.
Yeah, but I really did that for a while, not I guess for very long. So, but you know, probably not a lot. I probably didn't have a lot. I should have had more in terms of outside of political activities. That might have helped, because if your downtime is just basically idle time, sitting in front of a TV, and that was probably what I did too much of. Not that it's going to sound like I just watch TV all the time.
Well, the point that I wanted to make with that question was that you had a lot of hobbies outside of politics. Like you had things of interest. Like there's some people in politics I find all they do is politics. That's like all they think about and breathe and live every day. It's like you loved Waylon Jennings and obviously your Sunsker and Graham Dillette and old cars and Western shows and all kinds of different. And you coach football for a while when Coulter was young. And
sure did for about 5 years. That was great. See, Derek's still helping me out, giving me the.
I gotta keep you on the straight.
Once a staffer, always a staffer.
He's helping out with content, like he always says. What too funny. It's true. I did all those things, and so they were a good distraction. And music has always been. You know, I grew up in a house that always had 8 tracks going in the car, and lots of music at church, which I really like. I still like.
Yeah, me too.
Not so much the choruses. I'm kind of an old hymns guy or old gospel songs guy, but I like that stuff. And then country music. So you're right. I spend a lot of time with that stuff. I actually noodle around on my guitar a little bit. I know all 3 chords, so that's good.
That's important.
That's a start. Yeah.
I would kind of write a little bit. I'd write.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
For me, it just always seemed like you were more grounded.
For my. They're not very good. It's good therapy though to sit down and try to find a melody, which I'm particularly bad at, but then try to say something in a song or tell a story and make it is not easy. That is tough, and also have it not be crappy is not as tough.
Yeah,
so far
that helps.
I've been able to do the rhyming part, but I haven't been able to make them not crappy.
Yeah, I know you also talked a lot about Lincoln throughout your political career, and I remember seeing I don't know if it was like a daily kind of Lincoln, lessons book or something like that. I remember seeing that on your desk at some point. Talk about your sort of how I think you were mentored by Abraham Lincoln in a lot of ways, but maybe just describe how that all worked in your life.
I was and am a huge Lincoln nerd, and what got me going on that was I remember as a kid we went to Disneyland, and which was great. I loved it there, but my favorite thing at Disneyland wasn't Space Mountain or the Matterhorn or the Pirates of the Caribbean, although they would be in the top 5. My favorite thing was a animatronic robot speech by an animatronic Abraham Lincoln called "Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln."
Nice.
Still there to this day. It's just off Main Street, and it was the same presentation. Walt Disney entered in the 67 World's Fair or something like that, or something. I think that's what it was, and then he brought it down to Disneyland. It's been there ever since. And that particular show or exhibit is sort of a video of the life of Lincoln. And then the curtain opens and animatronic Abe stands up from his chair and gives this speech. And I was just like blown away. So I went home and went through the the Google equivalent of 1975 was the World Book Encyclopedia that my folks had. Thank goodness they did, and
Mm-hmm.
started reading there and then grabbing books. And yeah, I had that. I had quotes, Lincoln quotes. There was a small book I got at the Lincoln Memorial when I went there years after that I kept, and it had great quotes from Lincoln. And then there was kind of a devotional, like Lincoln's devotional, or what he believed. He wasn't a churchgoer, and he was criticized at the time for not being much of a churchgoer. And he made the case as to why he wasn't, but what he believed. But also just some of the things he wrote. The second inaugural seems to be written on on the portals of heaven. It is the bit of political writing or oratory that I have read, including Churchill stuff, and I'm a big fan of that too. But nothing. If you haven't read it and you get a moment, read the second inaugural. It is amazing. And so yeah, I thought whatever problems I had as premier, my province wasn't fighting each other and killing each other, and I wasn't. Yeah. I didn't have to order the killing of my fellow citizens to achieve victory, or to achieve something. So yeah, you're right. That's a good point, Derek. I was a big Lincoln nerd and still am.
Yeah, and I think it's important for everybody, leaders, no matter where you are, politics, business, nonprofit, is you need people to look up to, past or present. And you had Lincoln to always look to, and I think he helped guide you throughout, even though he wasn't currently living, which I think leaders should be doing more of, which I think is great. And you also mentioned sort of your faith, and obviously that's a big component in your life. And the thing I always appreciated is that you're able to integrate your faith into your public life, but it wasn't a negative; it was actually a positive. And you did it in such a way that I thought you had strong influence based on your values, but it didn't get to that one point where it's off-putting, where people are like, oh, I don't like this guy because he's a religious zealot or something like that. How did you sort of balance that in your public life?
Well, there's a line there. Excuse me. It's important, I think, because when they elected us, they didn't hire us to be their imam or a pastor or a rabbi.
Right.
Government, and so I think it's important to remember that that it's a secular thing. But I also think it's reasonable that someone's faith is going to be, if they're trying to honor it, and I'm sure I've fallen short so many times, but if you're trying to, that's going to make its way and express itself in things that are said, and even policies that you might bring in, or programs that you might bring in. And if faith-based institutions like long-term care and the Catholic Health Ministry can build a long-term care facility and have equal or better service at a equal or lower cost, then I don't really care. And we should be open to faith-based entities who can provide public service on a not-for-profit basis, and worry about the results. And so sometimes, to your point, your question, Derek, sometimes it's not so much what a person's faith will cause them to do, it's what they might be open. It's what they might not be opposed to doing. If that makes sense. Yep. Because some people think there should be absolutely nothing of faith in any public sector endeavor. And so then if that's the case, you deprive yourself of the option of faith-based delivery, of the Salvation Army providing the best shelter services, maybe better than any government agency could, of the Catholic Health Ministry being about, the Ahmadiyya Muslim school in Regina, good results. I think it's still there and operating, but you're not limited or restricted from exploring those options because because they happen to be faith-based. So I think that's an important part of it. There are also small things that happen. Like, I don't know if you remember, I think going into my second last session, or maybe it was third last, 17 or 16 or 15, there was, maybe after the 16 election, there was sort of momentum going for the Anglican prayer that starts each day of the legislative session to be done away with.
Yep.
Man, I didn't want that. And it's not an overtly Christian prayer. It is kind of a modified, I think, Anglican prayer, but but there's nothing in the prayer that's overtly Christian, I would say, although, that's what it is. But what an important time of reflection in a chamber that probably needs prayer more than any other, in a house of government probably needs prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember how that went, Derek, but I remember driving to Regina. I think I was driving with Everett to Regina, and all of a sudden, GME on there. That's the news stock station. One of them in Saskatchewan. They're doing the story on the prayer at the legislature, and on comes Mohammed Fayez, one of our MLAs, first Muslim MLA elected to the Saskatchewan legislature, and that happened during my time, obviously. And he, unbidden by me or anyone else, he had called CGME to basically state that it was really, really important to him and a good thing that the prayer continue. So you have the first elected Muslim MLA saying, and he kind of indicated, I'm paraphrasing wrong here, Mohammed hears this, and he's mad at how I'm paraphrasing him. I don't blame him. But basically said, I just take my time during that prayer to think and meditate in my own way and reflect. And I think it's a very, very good way to start the day. So, and we were going to move on it. I had already made some public pronouncements about we're not changing it, but it was really great to get that support from Five.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember your line that you used was, "Why would we get rid of it? We need all the help we can get."
Yeah.
And the media was like, "Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I guess maybe you're right." Like, and there's certain.
They like that one better, Derek, than if you don't like the food in prison, don't go to prison.
That was a famous line.
They didn't like that one very much. We had, for Greg's benefit, we had riots at one of the correctional facilities.
Oh, shoot.
Over the quality of the food.
Yes. Yeah, I remember one of our colleagues, Drew Wilby, he was in charge. He was doing comms for the ministry at the time, and he had to go and show the media all the food. I remember him saying, "Okay, here's what they get for lunch, and here's what they get for supper." And
not bad, yeah. And then I was at the end of a scrum, and I was annoyed by this anyway, rioting over quality of food in prison. So I just said, well, going to prison is completely optional, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a restaurant, you don't have to go if you think the food's bad.
Yeah. No, it's good. No, I think you're really right on that. There's a line in these things in public life nowadays. I feel like there's been a shift back to people saying, hey, we actually need more faith-based values in our society, in our community. The fact that we've gotten rid of so many of them and so many of our institutions has actually been a negative. And I think overall the public has somewhat seen that. And I think that's even a shift from when you were in office, where there'd probably be more openness to it now. Not again in like an over the top way, but just in saying like, hey, we all need values. We need kind of time to reflect. And we're all, human beings they typically respond to faith very well for whatever reason. And, I think that's in the soul of a person for the most part. But do you feel like that's sort of changed in public life since you've been in office?
I do. I think stateside it has, certainly. I think not Canada just yet, but maybe. I hope so, because I agree with you. Not to get too much too sort of into the Gospels or into all of this, but remember when that the Pharisee or the lawyer tried to trick Jesus, if you're familiar with it in the Bible, to have him name the most important of the laws of Moses.
Right. Yeah.
And he boils it down to two, right? He said basically, and I'm paraphrasing again, but love God, love your neighbor.
Yep.
So if that was motivating, people in politics, people in any endeavor, love God, love your neighbor, and they were actually acting on that. Be not a bad place. Earth would be a little, not a bad place to live.
Well, we have one final question, and then we got some rapid fire. So, Greg, why don't you fire away with that?
Yeah. So I was going to say, you were in politics. Obviously, it was important to you. But why do you think it's important for other people to get involved? And I guess you could also give, like, maybe, go back in time to when you first got involved. What was it? What was the motivating factor for you to get involved?
Abraham Lincoln in animatronic form.
Of course. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I was interested in politics since grade 6. And I did think for a long time, and it would be such a cool thing if I could just represent Swift Current, federally or provincially, it didn't matter, be the MP, be the MLA, and do politics, public service. And my family all did. Dad was on council for 20, 30, I don't know how long.
Oh, wow, nice.
Mom was a trustee, and Paul, Dad had lawn signs. I got to ask him about what they meant. And I was First time I ever did that, I said, we had a pre-PC lawn sign up. And I said, first of all, I said, I was really terrified when I walked. I was little. When I walked up, I was scared that it was a realtor sign and that we were moving. Dad said, no, that's it. Sign. And I said, well, can you tell me the difference? He goes, yeah, there's conservatives and there's liberals in the NDP. And the conservatives believe in free enterprise, and the NDP believe in the government doing everything, and the liberals don't know what they believe.
That sounds like John. Yeah.
That sounds like a dad answer.
That was a good dad answer. Anyway, so I grew up around politics, but I always wanted to, and I got involved in youth politics in grade 12 and then at university. And then, again, I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky that I got to do my dream job. But that's kind of where it all came from. And for those that are interested in politics, I think if they're motivated by the fact that they can leave things better than they found them, they can maybe do public service, maybe it's casework, maybe it's helping constituents with their issues in government. If that is their motivation, or any of those three things, then they're well motivated and they should try. They should do it. And that's what I would try to tell folks when they were considering being a candidate for us. You really can affect change. You can be on the front line, even in opposition. There's private members' bills, or there's casework, or there's advocating for something. You have this amazing sort of soapbox you get as a result of being an elected member, and it is worth it if you want to do it. And I did, and so I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's about influence for me. It's the idea that you can have influence and make things better. And I think we need way more people to run for office, and I'm sure you would agree with that.
I do.
But I think we need more people to be staffers in these political offices and do work there. I think we need more people advocating for different industries, like you talked about the Cattlemen's Association and energy, and there's so many different things that people need to be advocating for. I know even being on the outside running a company now, we've been able to impact a lot of policy change just by advocating with groups. Yeah. So get involved with the group. Sometimes we get involved with a group for passion, and then, they kind of became a client at some point. That worked out pretty well. But it's like we've seen significant policy change, and we're not elected. Yeah. So I think just in a democracy, everybody needs to think about public life and how to make things better and how to have a positive influence wherever they go.
You can kind of get it. It's addicting, right? Once you see even a little bit of progress. And so I did that in my elected life, but that's why I'm volunteered with the Canadian Cattle Association. Yeah. You can advocate for things and try to show people some important story that might change their behavior or view in a way that you think is positive. So it's something that never leaves you once you start, if you have an interest. And recruiting candidates was always a priority to try to find and encourage those folks that were motivated in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got rapid fire here to end it off, and so much appreciate your time here, Brad. So we'll do these real fast.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, what is, when you're on Blur, and I am too, or Greg, you are on Blur background, and it looks like does it not look like there's a giant fur thing on here?
Yeah, it looks like he's being hugged by
it looks like
an animal,
like a dyed moth, and I think you should keep it. You should go with it.
It's the answer is extremely nerdy, so please forgive me, but. So what it is actually is it's from, I don't know if they have them out west, but it's a JYSK store. It's basically like a super discount IKEA, but it's like a lambskin thing. And I don't even know, 10 years ago, I went as Jon Snow from Game of Thrones for Halloween. I had to make like the fur-lined cape thing that they wear, and I now use it. It's now my adornment for my work chair.
You've outed him, Brad.
You know what? That's a kind of an interesting story, but I'd go with the mullet. I would just say, look, because for sure, it looks like it might just be a dyed mullet, and that you'd be the only podcaster in politics that had one of those.
Yeah, you got to define. Yeah, you got to get out of define yourself from the crowd. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, Brad Wallace said, Greg, you must grow a mullet now. So that's the decree of the
right.
Premier.
How do you say no?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, rapid fire.
Derek, you'll ask one and I'll ask one.
Fire away.
Sure. Okay, I'll
go
start. First. Favorite politician of all time, past or present? I think we know the answer to this one.
Abraham Lincoln.
Easy.
Favorite book?
Team of Rivals, I'd say. But I'm reading one right now that would be at the top of the list. It's called Willie Whalen and the Boys.
Of course.
Book.
Yeah, Waylon Jennings, big fan. If you could instantly master a new skill, what would it be?
I would like to be able to rope better. I've been in a branding pen and by the luck China just caught, and usually just by 1 foot, which is not good. And I would like to be a roper.
You got to spend more time around our friend Graham Stewart, and then
Yeah, that's right. Graham, one of my last days in the office, brought in a rope because I asked him to, and he was kind of trying to teach me how to throw some shots. Yeah,
that's great.
Your greatest mentor?
My dad.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, just a thing about your parents here. Like your parents are obviously, just foundational pieces to the culture of Saskatchewan. And I know, your mom's not with us anymore, but just incredible people, and my family knows them, and just salt of the earth, just incredibly good people. So
yeah,
that's a great answer.
Thank you for saying so.
Most famous person you've got to meet because of being involved in politics?
I got pretty lucky. There's a couple of them. We had very good U.S. trade missions, and so John McCain was really interesting, for sure. And I did have an audience with Her Majesty the Queen. That was pretty cool. Arnold Schwarzenegger was really cool. He wears we met him at the embassy the U.S. embassy and the Canadian embassy in Washington when he was there for a governor's meeting. He was a governor of California. He wore a lot of makeup, and he stood when the photo time came. He stepped forward a little bit because he was not as tall as I thought Terminator would be, and he steps forward. Photos I learned afterwards, these group shots, so that he's a bit taller.
That's a good tip, actually.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, you're tall enough. You should be in the back. I need to step to the front of the group picture, Derek.
Yeah, no, it's a great tip.
Yeah. Greatest sports moment you recall seeing in person or on TV?
How long do we have? This is going to take a while.
You only get one. It's rapid
you got to pick the best.
Okay, it's the Stark and Marsh Vikings of the Minor Football League in Swift Current. I'm the defensive coordinator. I'm coaching that team. Coulter's on that team. We're playing Swift Current Steelers, I believe, in the championship game. Get this straight now. The time is running out. It's a straight time game. Time is running out. We're getting tied. We're getting close. We have a great kicker, John Neufeld. We called him Johnny Thunder. Great kicker. So we decided to put him in the game. He could place kick, but he a better punter, really good punter. We put him in the game. I don't even think it was third down. We put him in the game and just said punt it through the end zone because the Canadian rules have that dumb rule. I wish we wouldn't, but we do. So whatever.
Yeah.
We kick it with the rouge, and he kicks it, and for the first time, he does not hammer it like he usually does, and it lands in the arms of one of the Steelers in the end zone. They catch it, right? So what does he do? He's coached up. Well. He punts it out of the end zone to get it out of the end zone, not give up a point. So his coach, Laverne Krylock, has coached him up. He punts it out of the end zone. One of our guys, then catches the punt, and he's tackled, so it's going to go to OT, right? Except there were no yards on the play because there's still no yards on the punt. You've got to give, because you know that, you got to give them the 5 yards, and they didn't.
Right.
And nobody called it. Our quarterback runs off the field, talks to the head coach, and I'm standing right there, and he goes, "Isn't that no yards too?" We're like, "Yes, it is." So we asked the coach or the ref about that, and he threw the flag after the fact, which really made the other head coach mad, who may have swore.
Yeah, would have made me mad.
Then he got a flag for that. So we're now like at the 10, and now we're like, Johnny Thunder easily going to punt it through the end zone for the Rouge. Yeah. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in sports.
That's a great story.
Plus, we won the championship.
Wow, won it with a Rouge. That's like the most Canadian thing ever.
Yeah, right.
It's in French too, of course.
Yeah, I know. It just really bugs me that we reward failure. Like we feel bad. You only had one job on the place kicks, especially maybe on the punt, but on a field goal, you had one job to kick a field goal. You didn't. It happened to go out of the end zone, and so here's a point anyway. It's like equalization in football. I don't like it in Confederation, and I don't like it in football.
Yes. Saskatchewan Premiers can never like equalization. It's just not.
Not now that we're a have province, right, Derek? Now that's right. Changed.
Yeah. No longer have not province. I thought you were going to say 2013 Riders.
Yeah. I may have sat in the stands after the game by myself and may or may not have been weeping openly. That was also my birthday.
I didn't realize that.
Crazy.
I remember the
dressing room, and they're giving me the Grey Cup to drink out of, and I just thought, man, I am the luckiest dude I know.
Yeah, that must have been like the highlight of being premier, is like drinking out of the Grey Cup in
Yeah.
Regina after the
Yeah,
win.
probably.
On your birthday, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
probably.
This is actually important for your legacy, Brad. Is I believe the Riders haven't won since you were, so they won twice when you were premier. Is that right, or 3 times?
Here's the political history of the Riders in the Grey Cup. They have never won with the NDP in power.
That's right.
And I'm surprised Scott didn't mention that towards the end of that last election.
Yeah.
That,
Just bring that out. That's like the most important talking point.
Yeah. If you remember, I said we're getting close to the election. The Riders are on a playoff run, and I'm saying just putting it out there. Riders have never won with the NDP in power. In case people haven't figured out who they're voting for and they're not sure if they want it like us, how about the NDP curse of the Rider? So of course we got really lucky. Again, we won, and then the Riders won. They beat the Bombers in Toronto, and the Great won in 13. And to this day they have not won with the NDP in power. Have I said that? Have I said that they the NDP in power? Am I repeating myself?
You have to repeat it as much as possible. It's very important political history.
That's politics. You got to repeat and repeat and repeat. Yeah,
that's right.
Repetition. That's the. Yeah, and the final question was, I don't think I even need to say this, but the greatest Western movie of all time. We started with this. We can end with it.
Well, Tombstone, but if it's a TV series or any cinematic endeavor, Lonesome Dove is even ahead of Tombstone.
Really?
And if it's a straight up movie, it's Tombstone. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Well, we better link to that in the show notes here, and Guardians of the Grassland will definitely link to that too. And
you can watch Lonesome Dove for free on YouTube. The quality, but it's still worth it. So you might want to link to that one too for the fans of the Friggen Good podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give them some viewing options.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great honor to speak to you as always. And some of your stories, a lot of nostalgic memories for me, but just I think really important to document someone that was a generational leader for the province of Saskatchewan. I know you don't like hearing all these nice things about you, but it's too bad. Yeah. You can take it and you'll be all right. So,
okay. Well, thanks for having me on the first inaugural episode. I hope it takes off. I hope pretty soon you're rivaling Joe Rogan and who other big podcast shows I can't think of right now.
those ones, yeah. The ones that Coulter won't go on, right?
Yes, the ones he won't go on.
Yeah. Well, we'll tell that story another time. But basically, yeah, the Coulter could be going on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan keeps trying to get him on the podcast, but he won't go on because he's too busy ranching.
Right.
I get it.
He might be doing better in terms of publicity by not going on, because
I know
Post Below goes on there and all these other artists go on there and they talk about it some more. So he's getting he gets shout outs all the time for being Dr. No.
Kind of a secret genius strategy he's got going on there. So
if he ever was interested in politics, he'd have been a good finance minister, because you want those folks to just be able to say, no, I don't think we're that.
That's good at saying no. Yeah, that's a good finance minister. For sure.
Yeah.
Will of steel there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, we better end things here. Get you back to your day. Thank you so much again, sir. Take care.
All right, folks, take care.
Thank you very much. God bless.
You bet.